Hello and welcome back to the port. I'm the Gaff Major and this is Admiralty Reports. Admiralty Reports is your gameplays with my commentary. It's just to basically spotlight some good plays, very much so. Now this is a submission by Eternal Bliss playing in the Atago, the Tier 7 Premium Japanese Cruiser, in a game of domination on Tears of the Desert. He spawned on the left flank near Alpha and he's heading over towards the Alpha objective. On the enemy team there's an Akatsuki, a Udachi, a Mayuku, a Baltimore and a Wichita, a Sinop, a Gneisenhower, a Bismarck and an Iowa. On the friendly team there's an Akatsuki, Udachi, a division consisting of an Atlanta, a Lion and another Lion. Then there's a Eternal Bliss and a Atago, a Baltimore, a Margi and a Bismarck. Now, as he heads over towards the Alpha objective, from the left flank spawn location, one battleship stayed still, and the Amagi is heading into the centre to start forming up what I simply call the Great Big Ball of Doom. That's simply where most ships seem to cluster into the centre and then possibly not do much for the rest of the game. I'm not sure why some players do that, but it just seems to be a bad habit of some players at the moment, whether they're too scared to push objectives or something like that. And in a game mode like Domination, that's not the right kind of gameplay to have. Enemy Baltimore spotted, and getting the first volley out down range. There's the Gneisenhower as well, and we see that there's an enemy destroyer spotted in Bravo. Now, Gneisenhower is opening fire, but at this kind of range, we can kind of relax a little bit, knowing that the Gneisenhower's accuracy is going to be pretty horrendous. Now, as you'll see, he is using the Azur lane Atago permanent camouflage, which is actually quite nice. And I have to confess, I think out of all the Azur lane camouflages, this is probably the one that I actually like. The others I find a little bit garish, personally, and I'd prefer something that looks a bit more historically correct, but this almost looks like it could pass off as a possible what-if historic camouflage. It does look quite nice, actually, I have to confess. Now, obviously, going on to the commander build, he has used the Azur lane Atago as his commander, rank 16, legendary 2, and the skills he's used is Beyond Range, Arsonist, Punch Through, Fixated, and Refill Station. Now, the Arsonist skill on the Azur lane commander is a bit better, really. It gives a lot more increased fire chance. And as you can see, he's already managed to get 4 fires ignited already into this game. Picking on the Baltimore, and he's now having to turn in towards the objective, and he's got another cruiser off to his starboard side. So just going to have to keep an eye on that. Enemy have started to capture the Alpha objective. So we know we've got the Baltimore here, we know we've got the Gneisenhower here, we've got another battleship turning up to the fight. And we've got another cruiser as well. But amusingly, he's not being targeted or even focused that much. So somehow he's managed to really get himself nicely down on this flank, getting a bit of crossfire into the Alpha objective, taking advantage of the enemies being distracted by the other cruiser, I believe, on his team, possibly the battleship. Getting himself another fire on the Baltimore quite nicely. It's a Mayuku that's behind him, so time to get some speculative torpedoes out. The nice one with the Atago is she does have slightly or larger torpedo arcs, and she has 2 launchers per side. One's more like a forward firing, forward quarter torpedo launcher, and the other one's more like a rearward quarter torpedo launcher, with only both torpedo launchers really being able to fire directly out to the broadside together at the same time. Mayuku's looking pretty weak. Should be able to mop that up quite nicely. Baltimore's looking quite weak as well. 2 very weak cruisers in very close proximity. Baltimore's burning up, there she goes. Time to mop up on that Mayuku, getting a volley of HE down range, and getting ourselves a double strike, very nice. So the other battleship's a Sinop, and it looks like he's pushing in quite aggressively into the Alpha objective. So time to push up to this island here in order to get a bit of cover. Now you don't really see many ships over on this side of the island, I have to confess, when I played this map multiple times before. Now regarding Atago, he has gone for Aiming Systems Module 1, Steering Gears Module 2, Steering Gears Module 3, Gunfire Control Systems Module 2. So he's gone for improved main battery dispersion, improved torpedo launcher traverse speed, some secondary buffs here and there. The double steering gears, I can completely appreciate that for someone who likes to play a kiting playstyle where you kite in and out from the enemy. And he's also then gone for the improved gun range, which is kind of crucial at tier 7, I have to confess, with cruisers, especially with some of the standoff kind of battles you end up getting into with some of the long range battleships. Going back to his commander, he has taken the following inspirations. He's used the Warhammer Arthas the Cold inspiration, and he's also taken Norman Scott. Now here he's doing a nice little trick. He's getting himself up against the island, and then he's going to back up in order to fire his torpedoes. The reason being is your ship is obviously always going to have a faster acceleration going forwards. So this would allow you to almost sneak your bum out, get some torpedoes away, and then quickly accelerate off, hoping that the enemy don't spot you, because obviously the line of sight is from bridge to bridge. However, unfortunately, he is spotted by the catapult fighter from the Gneisenhower. He's then able to get a quick volley of AP off, but thankfully, like I was saying, with the quicker acceleration, he's able to quickly bob it back forward and not get caught out too much. Now here's another interesting one about the Atago. So A and B turret are forward facing, with C, X and Y being rearward facing. So with more rearward facing turrets, it's easier to kite away from the target, and you're able to always bring guns onto target. Getting himself 3 torpedo hits on the Gneisenhower, and the Gneisenhower giving away his location by launching a catapult fighter. So the other catapult fighter must have been from the Sinop. Oh, it could have been, no, probably was a Snop actually. Now again, taking advantage of the terrible German dispersion, keeping the distance between yourself and the German battleship, it allows you to take a bit more risks. Knowing that he has a catapult fighter rather than a spotter aircraft as well, leads me to believe that he's probably gone down the pure secondary range build rather than any form of accuracy build. Now, Eternal Abyss has included his email stating that he always uses the 76 knot torpedoes on the Atago because I typically only use torpedoes in close quarters, so having the faster torpedoes makes it harder for ships to avoid them in close quarters situations like you'll see in this match. The slower torpedoes are a bit easier to avoid. I don't mind the reduction in other aspects, all I want are my torpedoes to hit, which is a fair enough conclusion. I think when it comes to the torpedo choice, it's a bit like horses for courses. Now, I think the detectability and speed differences mean that the long-range torpedoes are actually, well, will give an enemy a slightly less time to respond to those torpedoes if picked up at the torpedo detectability range. It's only if they're picked up by sonar does the speed make a massive difference. But I have done a discussion in regards to that before, and I have that carded top right now. So now we're in a bit of a quiet moment of the game. It's even Stevens almost when it comes to ships. In fact, Eternal Abyss's team does have the advantage in ships, and currently does have the advantage in points. The problem is they don't have the advantage in cap points, and therefore that's going to be incredibly detrimental to them. However, Eternal Abyss has managed to get himself 3 kills and 110,000 damage. Now he was spotted by I from his location, which is now dropped off. Nah, spotted by aircraft. There's always that random bug where when you get undetected by aircraft it switches to an I. That's probably what I was misinterpreting. I do apologise. So now the enemy team is started to run away with the points simply because they've managed to get the cap advantage. So left on the enemy team is a Udachi, a Sinop, a Bismarck and an Iowa. There we go. And the only people who are still alive on the Eternal Abyss's team is actually the Division, which is quite amusing. finally capturing the Alpha objective, and enemy battleships are starting to be spotted. So we know the Synop's running off towards the east, I should say. Then in the centre of the map, there's another battleship spotted, and then there's a further one spotted to the southeast. Synop's just coming into range, but because she's moving away, it's not. The Eternal Abyss is not able to target where she's going, just due to the range issue. Now, if he was able to get within proximity of an ally, that might change with refill station, which would improve his range a little bit more. But at the moment, the friendlies are probably only just coming into range, so we might see the use of the legendary skill actually coming into effect, which would be quite nice. So it's the Bismarck that's been spotted by the powerful objective, which is opening fire on the friendly line. There's the legendary ability now activated, and you see his gun range does push out. Unfortunately, with the Bismarck being its current location, Bismarck's now taking a priority over the Synop. And also now you can see that his range has dropped off because the proximity to an ally has dropped off, but his detectability has still stayed at the detectability of his improved range, as that's when he was fired and detected, but that should drop off. There we go. Now, one of the big questions I think we're all going to be having is, where is that Yudachi? Oh, he's just torpedoed that friendly line off to Eternal Abyss's starboard side. So is he going to be over by these islands here? Oh, we have an Iowa in this location as well. Iowa was quite concerning with her very accurate 16-inch guns. Bismarck is getting close as well. There's the Yudachi, there we go. So the Yudachi is just making a dash for this island. Now we've got a minute of sonar left to keep that Yudachi spotted. So it should be just a matter of wait and see. Hopefully the Yudachi will make a mistake of kindness. Oh, detected by the sonar from the Bismarck. That's always quite an interesting trick of the Bismarck. There's not many battleships in the game which do come with sonar, but when they do do cheeky things like this. Yudachi's seen the torpedoes come round and is making a rush out, having fired torpedoes out on the friendly line. However, there we go, demolishing the Yudachi and then himself his 4th kill. Bismarck time now, so Bismarck trying to get through this gap, getting one of his torpedo launchers out, earning himself the high caliber with some of his secondary hits. Quite a broad stance against the Bismarck, and getting punished a little bit for it, but you have to use the broad stance in order to get the torpedoes out on target, and you are going to need them because even after that first wave of hits, Bismarck is still around. There are 3 more hits to himself a Kraken, and his 5th kill, shooting down the aircraft from the Bismarck as well. But there's the Iowa. Time to get in behind this island because we don't want to be getting anywhere near the Iowa unless we really have to. The reason why I say that is the Iowa does have 16-inch guns, and she will overmatch the armour of the Atago regardless of angle. And so it's simply just for the Iowa, he just needs to load AP and just hit Eternal Abyss regardless of what's going on. Launching his catapult fighter in order to try and read what the enemy's doing before he comes around the corner. Thankfully, the Iowa goes and wastes a volley on the friendly lion, which, if he had saved it and got Eternal Abyss as he came broadside round, then he would have got himself probably a guaranteed kill. So the Iowa's kind of spared Eternal Abyss a little bit here. His rudder's now knocked out. But in fact, I don't think Eternal Abyss minds too much, because I think he wants to obviously turn all the way around, because his second batch of torpedoes from his port side are ready and waiting. Quickly knocking off the damage control, trying to tuck it in, taking another smack from the Iowa, unfortunately. But the Iowa looks like he's now obviously turned into those torpedoes, which is very nice. And we're just waiting to see if we can get a torpedo hit. There we go, clipping the stern of the Iowa, getting himself a flooding. getting himself a fire as well. So by the looks of the way that the fire is sticking and the flooding is sticking, the Iowa has used his damage control earlier. And that's all, folks. So now on to the end screen. So unfortunately that was a defeat for Eternal Abyss in his Atago. However, he has been able to make himself a lovely amount of damage, 230,000 damage. And that's all from 126 hits on target, 10 torpedoes and 18 fires, getting himself 5 kills as well in the progress. Now, he did get himself Kraken Unleashed, Double Strike, and High Caliber, so all in all, quite a good collection of ribbons and medals, making himself a very pretty penny, I hope, at the end. Going on to the team screens, we can see that Eternal Abyss has obviously come in top of his team with 2,556 ship XP. Obviously, you have to also consider that that value does not include a 1.5 multiplier, whereas on the enemy team, the enemy Udachi, his ship XP value on the scoreboard does include a 1.5 multiplier to the ship XP. Therefore, Eternibus does come in as the best player in this game if you take that 1.5 multiplier away from the enemy team, which is quite amusing. Obviously, there's a good mix of scores all over the doors here, but going on to the economy tab, and this is where we see that Eternal Abyss has managed to make himself 458,000 credits with premium. Without premium, he would have made 246,000 credits. So, he would have made himself a very tiny profit for a tier 7 defeat. So, if he had won, you could only imagine that the amount of coinage that he would have made would have been even more. And again, also making himself a tiny amount of Commander XP, Ship XP, and Global XP. Well, if you have enjoyed this Admiralty report, then feel free to give it a thumbs up. As always, feel free to send in your own submissions. Our email address is down in the description, and we do these on Mondays, alternating between Admiralty reports and Sea Trials. Admiralty reports is your gameplay with my commentary, and Sea Trials is your gameplay with tactical overlays, either showcasing things done well to obviously pass on information to the community, or if you want, you can send your own gameplays and I can critique them and show alternative things that you could do to obviously improve your gameplay. It's all down to you guys. These Monday community videos wouldn't be feasible without your submissions, so I have to always say thank you for those of you who do send them in. It's always much appreciated. Also, if you'd like to support the channel, our Patreon link is down in the description, along with the ship modules and the commander build that Eternal Abyss has used during this game. If you like this kind of content, feel free to subscribe. And if you are already a subscriber, I'd like to say thank you very much, guys and gals, for your continued support, comments, and your submissions, very much like this one. Until next time, I'm the guy from Major, and back to the port.